All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely incredible growth story, CitySpeak. I mean, we're talking about a company that managed to achieve almost tenfold growth. And the crazy part, they did it because of their commitment to user privacy, not in spite of it. So how on earth did they do that?
It all boils down to this one number, 980%. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the kind of growth in daily active users we're talking about here. A number that big, it just forces you to ask, it forces you to ask one really obvious question.
Yep, that's the one. How in the world did they pull this off? I mean, this wasn't just any social network. It was built on Web4.community, a platform that's all about being privacy first. And you know what that usually means, right? It means that user data is locked down tight, which makes it super hard to analyze for, business insights. And that's the real puzzle we're going to solve today.
So this brings us right to the heart of the problem that CitySpeak was dealing with. They called it the Web 4.0 paradox. It's this classic tug of war between what they promised their users and what they needed to do to actually run the business.
So, just to be clear, what exactly is CitySpeak? Well, think of it as a hyper-local social network, connecting people in their own neighborhoods. But their big selling point, the thing that made them different, was that they built the whole thing on the decentralized Web4 platform community. This was a huge deal because it meant users actually owned and controlled their own data. A massive win for privacy for sure.
And here's that paradox laid out perfectly. On the one hand, you have the Web 4.0 promise, user control, amazing privacy. That's what got people to sign up. But on the other hand, you have the Web 4.0 problem. That same privacy-focused architecture created a huge operational bottleneck. Getting business insights was just painfully slow.
And we're not talking about simple stuff here, like how many users do we have? No. We're talking about deep, strategic questions like this one. Imagine trying to figure that out. To get an answer, their data science team would have to spend days manually crunching the numbers. They just couldn't move fast enough to scale the business.
This analogy just nails it, doesn't it? They were literally sitting on a mountain of super valuable data from their own network, but they had no way to dig into it. It was like they were data-rich but insight-poor, a terrible place to be. So, what was the solution? Well, the answer wasn't to give up on their privacy principles. Not at all. It was to build smarter tech on top of those principles. And that's where they had their big breakthrough. They created this amazing conversational AI tool that they called the Insight Navigator.
So here's how it worked, and it's actually pretty brilliant in its simplicity. First, a manager could just type a question in plain English, no code needed. Then, and this is the absolute magic right here, the AI would translate that question into a complex query. But it did this using a special read-only anonymizing API, so it could talk to the Web4.community data and get answers without ever seeing or exposing any personal user info. Their privacy promise stayed 100% intact. And finally, boom, it would spit out a clear, actionable answer, complete with charts.
Now, to really get the impact of this, you have to look at the before picture. Before they had this tool, the average time it took to get an answer to one of those big strategic questions was 3 days. Just imagine waiting 3 days for a critical piece of info.
And after? 20 seconds. I mean, come on. From 3 days down to less than half a minute. That's not just an improvement, that's a total game changer. It completely transformed how they could operate and make decisions. Okay, so they've got this incredible new speed. This meant CitySpeak could finally stop being reactive and start being really truly proactive. So let's look at 3 specific strategies they launched that used this new power to turn those seconds into serious, massive scale.
So first up, they went after retention and viral growth. This is the holy grail for any social network, right? They asked the AI the super specific question, basically asking, who are our best, stickiest users, and what do they do that also gets them to bring their friends?
And the answer that came back was something they never would have guessed. It turns out their most valuable users weren't the young influencers or the loudest people on the platform. Nope. It was a group of users aged 55 and up who were organizing things like local cleanups and sharing neighborhood history. CitySpeak nicknamed them their local anchors and right away launched a program to feature them and boost their visibility. And look at what happened. The results were just insane. Their viral acquisition rate, that's basically the number of new users each existing user brings in, also known as the K factor, it shot up by 75%. They found this quiet, super loyal group and turned them into their main engine for growth. Incredible.
Okay, next up, revenue. Now remember, they built their entire company on the Web4.community promise of not selling user data. So how do you make money? Well, they asked their AI to look for market gaps, analyzing all the anonymous chatter about things people wanted versus things that were available.
And the AI found a gold mine. For example, it flagged this huge, frustrating gap for weekend e-bike repair services. People were talking about it constantly, but nobody in the local market was offering it. So CitySpeak did something genius. They started packaging these aggregated, totally non-personal insights and sold them as market gap reports to local businesses. This was the perfect way to make money from their data without ever compromising user privacy.
And the impact on their bottom line? Absolutely mind-blowing. This new B2B product caused their monthly recurring revenue to jump by 410%. 410% in just 6 months.
All right, for their third big move, they went after churn. You know, users who sign up and then leave. It's the silent killer for any social platform. So they asked the AI to look for hidden signals, for the behavioral tells of a user who was about to ghost them. And again, the AI found something really subtle but so powerful. It discovered that users who had high DM usage but zero public posts were almost guaranteed to leave. It makes sense, right? They were treating the app like a private messenger, not a community. They weren't getting the real value. So CitySpeak deployed a little community activation bot to gently nudge these folks into the public conversation.
And guess what? It worked like a charm. This one little proactive bot cut their churn rate in that critical first 45-day window by 55%. That's a huge deal for the long-term health of the network.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. When you look at the whole story, it's really a masterclass in how data, privacy, and crazy hypergrowth can all work together.
Remember that 980% number we started with? Well, here it is again, but now with all the context. They went from 15,000 daily active users to over 160,000. What CitySpeak proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that you don't have to choose between user privacy and business speed. In fact, by building on the Web 4.0 community platform and innovating with things like their AI, respecting privacy is what unlocked their incredible growth.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. CitySpeak found their key. It was a conversational AI that could respect the rules of a privacy-first world. And it just makes you think, for whatever you're working on, what hidden potential is sitting inside your data right now? And more importantly, what's the key that's going to unlock it?